Welcome to this analysis of the NBA and their ratings and viewings. The NBA has always been a diverse league in terms of its customers and in terms of its viewership. A league that starts games sometimes at 11:45 and doesn't end games until sometimes well past midnight, as it has done since the end of the 1990s and going into the 2000s and so on. But the NBA recently, in light of a coronavirus pandemic globally and in light of racial justice that led to geopolitical issues that went far beyond the court and therefore hit stride with the court as well and with the NBA players, there has been some change and some more, a lot more outspoken players recently. A more prevalency of outspoken players. Not that there weren't outspoken players before, but the presidency of Donald Trump combined with some of the racial riots and social justice protests in correlation with business Black Lives Matter, in correlation to the lack of standing in the overall far left, usually sentiment, usually narrative that the NBA goes with. The ratings with the NBA have dipped, and they've continued to dip, and they've dipped to things that aren't totally surprising considering the direction that they've gone into the far left. As far as what they've dipped below and therefore fallen inferior to in terms of ratings, things like The Simpsons, things like Swamp People, things like Fox News, which hasn't done great lately but is on the rebound again. Also things like CNN, MSNBC, and NBC. Things like Family Guy, things like I said again, Swamp People. Other things in the alternative TV world and in the YouTube world, like Brandon Tatum and like Charlie Kirk and other things at times, including Joe Rogan as well, have managed to outdone the NBA in terms of numbers and have done that on random nights, not as a whole, but the fact that it's even happening in randomness and on random nights is a alarming sign for the NBA, and it's definitely a decline of customer viewership and a decline of customers, period. But it also shows a lack of interest in message and a lack of interest in just a lack of interest in general. The lack of interest is more telling than the lack of numbers. But that has a lot to do with the political message and the fact that they're being very authoritative with their coronavirus regulations and the fact that games don't have the same atmosphere that they did, considering Adam Silver has not allowed fans to come back into the stands yet, as that will probably change sometime soon. But the over-politicized message combined with the still coronavirus lockdowns in some places have made it to where it's not bearable, or at least worth watching a lot of the times, especially when those teams on the East Coast that are definitely not playoff teams are not very good a lot of the times anyway. But bringing the point to light in correlation to this, why it is a problem and why things need to change, is that for years, majority of the NBA fan base, or not the majority of the NBA fan base, but a good percentage of the NBA fan base that were their most loyal, are more people that are not very political, but if you were to designate them politically, they wouldn't be right wing, but they would lean right of center, and therefore a lot of libertarians, a lot of independents were very big NBA fans in the NBA's early years and the NBA's developing and most successful years until very recently, when everything has been geopoliticized and politicized and definitely biased. You hear quotes from coaches like Steve Kerr and other people, but if the NBA is going to get back to having a better bottom dollar in the U.S. and not being totally dependent on China and selling out to them, they're going to have to bring back their independent, libertarian, and conservative fans, and know that that is an essential fan that they need to bring back. But until they do that, the numbers will dip, and they'll continue to dip, and they will continue to do so to even YouTube podcasts. But we'll see if this is a trend or if it is something that is here to stay. The disease that they are fighting in terms of their ideology, it'll probably be around a little bit longer than what we think until full-fledged change is totally made, and things start to go back to how they were eventually. But it could be a while, and with the way that the media likes to continue to play up narratives, we never do know, as we see from Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe and Skip Bayless and other personalities in the media that like to throw things out of proportion in the sports world. We never know what will happen. As we saw with Drew Brees last year, even though there is the NFL, it still is the sports world, and it's still the same. Some of the same off-the-wall type of stuff happens in the NBA. But the bottom dollar in the NBA will get better once once all lives matter, including Black Lives Matter, and once they realize that conservatives, libertarians, and independents are part of the fan base that brought them to where they are in terms of their game viewership and in terms of their content viewership and in terms of buying their products in general. But until that happens, the NBA will never be the same, and until that happens, the NBA will never reach its destiny or potential.